Hello everyone, my name is Josh and this is WHIMS Scream Musings, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Scream 2. And this was released in 1998, which is 2 years after the release of the first film Scream, after it was a mega hit. So Kevin Williamson basically pitched this sequel right off the bat. In fact, he wrote a treatment for both Screams 1, Screams 2 and Scream 3, whilst his original script for Scream was being presented to these different executives. In fact, a bidding war took place, which basically guaranteed that his script was going to get taken up by the studio no matter who got it, essentially. And also a very fun fact that I'm also going to reference before we move on to the actual review proper is the title Scream. It wasn't originally called Scream when it was first being written. In fact, Kevin Williamson had actually written the script under the title of Scary Movie, but it was only at the behest of the producers that they name it a one-word title. And the name Scream just really jumps out at you and really gives you the sense that, it could be about anything. It's very Hitchcockian in its approach, like Psycho or Frenzy or Rope. You know, those kind of one-word titles where it literally gives you the impression that it's very specific, but it could also be about anything kind of thing. So this film begins with its cold open at a preview screening, and we follow a couple we see the film begins with the opening of a new film, a preview for a film called Stab, which is basically the Scream universe's in-universe version of the Scream films. And it's basically Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven's way of basically commenting on the franchise that they're creating as it's coming out and as the stories are being created. They can comment on how characters are developing and how they're evolving and various problems that they might have, or various different cultural changes and cultural shifts within this particular franchise and various other things. So it's their way of being extra meta, if that makes sense. So we follow this couple, Maureen and her boyfriend Stephen, and they're going to go and see this movie. And originally, Maureen's not very into it, but when her boyfriend goes off to the toilet, she basically just sits down in the cinema. She starts off going like, "Oh, why am I here? Like, why am I going to go and see this movie with someone that I clearly like, and when I could be going to go and see any other film, like a rom-com or something?" She's like going, "Oh, why am I into this? Why am I here?" But then when her boyfriend goes to the toilet, she gets really into it. Like, she's going, "Oh no, don't go in there. Go in this way, or go that way. Hide, quick, hide." And things like that. And I really love that. I like the fact that she starts off very much not interested in it at all, but then she really gets into it and she gets really, hyped and almost, egging the characters on kind of thing. And it really is quite, amusing to see. But during this time, Stephen is going to the toilet, and there's that wonderful shot where he's looking and he sees, all those two ghost face at the urinal, and they just turn to him and give him both kind of deadpan looks kind of thing. And I thought that was a very amusing moment in the entire opening. But he goes into the store and he hears a very mumbly voice say the words, because I watched this with subtitles on, "Mummy, why did you leave, Mummy? Mummy, why did you leave? Why did you do it, Mummy?" And things like that. So, like an idiot, he presses his ear against the door or against the wall of the toilet, and he gets stabbed in the ear. And that's when the Ghostface killer basically adopts his coat and he goes back to the girlfriend, Maureen, and decides to sit with her. And I'm also going to play a game or I'm actually going to talk about, who killed who in the first film when I get to the very end of my review for this film. So this opening is really good because it does something which I think a lot of the other films should do, which is they really do a very good job of humanising the characters and giving you an insight into who these characters are right off the bat. And you really do get a sense with this opening that this couple is a genuine, couple that dates and, goes out a lot and has all sorts of different opinions about all sorts of different things. And they're funny, they're very insightful, they're very intelligent. And I just think it's very heartbreaking when you see them get killed off. Like, it really does give you that sense like, oh, I was hoping that they'd get, that they'd get more fleshed out, or they'd have much more of a bigger role in the story, or maybe one of them might survive the Ghostface killings in order to tell what actually happened. But no, they just get killed off. They're the big opening kill, and it's actually really sad. But you really do get the impression that they do feel fleshed out enough, so that when they do die, they don't just feel like, oh, they're the obligatory, first kill. They actually do feel fleshed out. They're not just, horny teenagers or something like that. They're actual characters with actual personalities and actual lives outside of the madness that they're in this current predicament. But what I really like to also bring up before we continue is this film begins on opening night with this film called Stab, and everyone's wearing ghost face masks, and the cinema that they're in is absolutely packed. And so you immediately get this sense of claustrophobia and this intense feeling of absolute, dread before the threat's actually established, because there's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of people going around with ghost face masks on, and everyone's going to be cheering, and everyone's going to be going crazy, going wild. So there's already that extra level of intensity, and it almost reminds me of The Shining in the sense that when you see the snow outside of the Overlook Hotel, that the characters are trapped from the very beginning. It's kind of like that with the cinema setting and with the packed audience, the people with ghost face masks. So you immediately are worried for the main characters, or the people that we're focusing on for this particular opening. So Maureen gets stabbed when she finds that on her boyfriend's coat there's blood, and she gets stabbed in the gut, and he stabs her multiple times. And throughout this entire ordeal that this poor woman's going through, people are cheering, people don't know, because people don't know that she's actually getting murdered. People think that, oh, this is a publicity stunt, this is, clearly a stunt that's made for the promotion of the film, and it's meant to be a lot of fun, that they're all cheering, the killer on, and they're saying, yeah, killer, like, what's your favourite scary movie, and things like that. Like, they're cheering away, and she's clearly going through something really horrible. And what I really like is you're being shown in this moment that this is an actual human being who's being killed here. It isn't just, some random person who's, like a hyperactive teenager who's very sexualized, or a very kind of stupid person who just, immediately goes out and says, oh, I'm just going to the bathroom, I'll be right back, or something like that. They're actual people who actually feel fleshed out, and actual, people who have lives outside of the stuff that's going on in their current predicament. And I really like that. And they could have really written them one-dimensionally, but I really like the fact that Kevin Williamson went the extra mile and actually wrote them as interesting characters who, when they do die, you're actually quite sad to see them go, and that really is quite special. So, and I also want to note that this is the first time in the entire series where we don't open with a phone call, because usually with the Scream franchise, it always opens with a phone call where Roger L. Jackson as Ghostface comes on and says, hello you, what's your favourite scary movie, kind of thing. And then it just escalates until we eventually get the big kill. But this doesn't open that way. It opens in a cinema and it ends on a theatre stage. And I think that's a very interesting way of ending the story for this particular film, because it shows you it kind of establishes a theme right off the bat of what's the difference between art and real life, and can these two things be interchangeable once they're submerged. And I think that's a very interesting aspect of what the film is talking about. So with that first kill out of the way, we're introduced to Sydney Prescott. She's at her college of Windsor, and she's a drama major. She's moving on with her life after the initial Woodsboro attacks, and she just literally is trying to just get about her day. She has a boyfriend named Derek. She has a best friend called Hallie, and she has another group of friends along with her old friend Randy, who kind of jumps in and out every so often of the friends group and talks about stuff. But he's majoring in film, and the big film discussion of this particular installment is sequels, and he's under the impression that all sequels are pretty much terrible, and I can definitely count on one hand my favourite sequels: Aliens, The Godfather Part 2, Hellbound Hellraiser 2, and Scream 2, and I've forgotten the last one that was my favourite sequel. Yeah, I literally have Empire Strikes Back, Empire Strikes Back. So those are my five favourite sequels, all counted on one hand. I even mentioned Godfather Part 2. Need to, otherwise my mum will kill me. Yeah, she'll be like, "How dare you?" But yeah, I definitely have my favourite sequels all on one hand. I absolutely love it. So yeah, I absolutely love sequels, and I love the sequels that are mentioned in this particular scene, because they reference The Godfather Part 2, of course, but then they reference, because with The Godfather Part 2, there's the story of Michael Corleone being the Godfather, but then there's also the backstory of Vito Corleone, how he was a boy growing up in Sicily and how he came over on the immigration ships, the Windrush and all those other things, just not the Windrush, but yeah, on coming over from Italy, coming over from Sicily, coming to America, and basically starting out a new life in America as a small boy, and his story kind of running parallel to Michael's rise to power and his sort of parallel to rise to power, and that automatically creates the theme of family and the connections between the different generations. So I thought that was a very interesting theme that they kind of started to establish there. But then they also reference Aliens, which is the sequel to the 1979 film with the same name, the Ridley Scott film with the same name. But it's also a really good sequel, but it also has the theme of motherhood, because we have Ellen Ripley, basically fighting off. She's a mum because at the very start of the film she has her daughter Amanda Ripley, who she's found out has actually died. She's been asleep for a very long time, and she finds out through a photograph that her daughter basically has died. She's grown up without her, and she's basically grown into old age, and she hasn't seen her daughter for ages, and now she's seeing her daughter, who she probably saw when she was a small child, now as an old woman and lived a life of her own. And that's that was a very heartbreaking scene, and that's only in the extended cut, but I like the fact that was included because it shows that she's a mother, and she's now had to she's literally had to find out that her daughter's lived an entire life without her, essentially. And the fact that she has to now face off against another mother, which is literally the Queen, I think that's a very interesting connection there. And of course it adds to the theme of mothers and the fact that the killer could be the mother of another character from the previous film. So there's that connection too, which I think is very interesting. Excuse me, but I really like that connection. And I like the fact that Randy, for all his sins, gets the iconic line of "Get away from her, you bitch" wrong, which is, anybody can tell you, even people who haven't even seen the film Aliens for years, can tell you the iconic line is "Get away from her, you bitch." But then he jumps in and says the line's actually "Stay away from her, you bitch." This is film class, right? And I thought, nope, Randy, you got it wrong, my friend. And incorrect. But yeah, I absolutely love that scene. I love just hearing people talk about films and their favourite movies and sequels. But they also mention in this class you can't blame real life violence on entertainment, and that's one of the things that I think really kind of brings into play the idea that the film opens in a cinema and ends on a theatre stage. It kind of adds that idea of what's real and what isn't real. When does the fiction begin and when does the reality end, and all the rest of it, like what happens. And there's even a point halfway through the film where Sydney is in a drama production about the priestess Cassandra, who was cursed by Apollo with the ability of second sight, and she basically foresaw everything. She foresaw the wars, she foresaw the conflict, she foresaw the bloodshed, and her theatre director, played by the wonderful David Warner, basically says that she shares a lot of parallels with Sydney, and in a way she does, because she's had to carry this very big burden, which is foreseeing the most horrific of events and not being able to be believed, or being able to be, not being believed, but also not being able to actually really deal with it in a way that makes her feel human. She hasn't been able to forge any connections with anybody because she has this this difficult mantle to carry, which is that she's now this priestess who has second sight and everything like that. So she sees a lot of parallels between her own story and the story that's going on in this particular film. But but we're going to leave that shelved for now. But then we get introduced to Gail Weathers, who is trying to basically, she comes to Windsor College because she hears about the murders of Maureen and her boyfriend Stephen, and she makes the connection that the characters who are being killed actually have the same names to various people who have been killed in the original Woodsboro murders. Like Maureen Evans is the same name as Maureen Prescott, Sidney's mother, and Stephen something, I don't know what his surname was, but he has the same name as Casey Becker's boyfriend, and Cece, who's played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, who gets killed in quite a very brutal way, actually. She gets stabbed, and then she gets thrown off the balcony of her sorority. And I actually found that to be very, very dark. Like, it's quite horrible, actually. Like, it's really, horrific. But also, it's Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's, this icon for the 90s, being killed off in quite a very brutal way in Scream 2. It's actually really horrible. But I really do like it because it creates that connection of she has the name Cece, but it's actually short for Casey. So there's that case of Casey Cooper and things like that, Casey Becker. So there is that connection that there's being deliberately done so that they can mirror the Woodsboro killings. And this film just has so many great moments like that, but I also like the fact that Gail Weathers just hasn't changed. Like, when she finds out that there's a murder that's happened as a result of the film Stab, or during the preview for the film Stab, she's like going, oh yeah, the numbers are going to be great this weekend, it's going to be fabulous, and things like that, and they're just going to be, the royalties are just going to be coming in, like pouring in, and I just thought, Gail, you have not changed, have you? Like, it's insane. And Gail Weathers is played by the wonderful Courtney Cox, who a lot of us may know as Monica Geller from Friends, and she really does know how to play a character like Gail so well. The character who, doesn't really care about the actual, repercussions of what she's doing. She just cares about getting paid and getting promoted and all the rest of it. Like, she doesn't care who she throws under the bus to get the promotion that she wants, to get the things that she wants. She just cares about, getting the news and making it believable. And it would make me really not like her, but because she's played by Courtney Cox, who is Monica Geller, who's such a nice person, but also really neurotic, it's really hard not to like her, because I think Courtney Cox really adds this level of likability to her, even though technically she does do some really terrible things, but she does it so well. And of course, her chemistry with David Arquette as Dewey Riley is so wonderful. I love the scene where he's basically saying, where he's saying that, in page 42 of your book, you say, Deputy Dewey Riley really, waltzed into the room with his Barney Fife-ish presence and things like that. So he really shows her that your words have hurt me, and you really have, used me in the worst way possible. And she goes, I didn't mean to offend you, Dewey, I was just doing my job. And he goes, well, I don't forgive you, or anything like that. And I really do like the fact that it really has shown that what she's done has actually really hurt people. But what's very interesting about this particular film is you really do get the sense that this killer means business. This guy is not here to F around. He literally is a killer who is out for blood, and he's out for Sydney. He's out for anybody who survived the original Woodsboro murders, and it's wonderful. I absolutely really do like this film because of how much the stakes are literally raised from person to person. It's so well done. I absolutely love it. I love all the dialogue. I like, I like all the characters. I'm literally going to say it right now. During a scene where Derek, Sydney's love interest, or Sydney's boyfriend in this version, they're in this cafeteria, and he starts to sing I Think I Love You from Top Gun, and it was sung by Tom Cruise. This scene, I kind of go back and forth whenever I watch it as to whether I like it, because I do think it's really sweet, and I think Derek is probably the sweetest boyfriend Sydney has ever had in terms of, a love interest. I think he really is likeable, he's really friendly, and he's damn cute. I absolutely really like him. I think he's really adorable, and he's also really, handsome as well. So there's that too. And I think he's lovable. I think he's really lovable. But when he sings "I Think I Love You," I really just I go back and forth between thinking, oh, it's really lovely, it's really sweet, but then there's also times when I watch it and I'm just thinking to myself, oh my god, this is so cringy. Like, if I was there, I'd literally be hiding my hands. I'd be hiding my face, like I wouldn't be, reacting to it. But I'd also feel really bad as well if that was me. Like, I'd be thinking to myself, like, he's doing this really nice thing for me, and he's and I'm just doing this. Like, but then she's wonderful, Sydney. Like, she's smiling, like she's laughing, she's clapping along, like she's very happy to hear that this guy really loves her and really cares about her. But then this actually comes into play much later on, because he gives her his letters, and when you are in American fraternities, if you give your letters, if you're a part of a specific fraternity and you give your letters to a stranger, that's literally treasonous. So he's going to get punished for that much later on. And I don't know much about fraternities outside of what I've learned from this film and various other films I've watched, like Revenge of the Nerds and other things like that, because I'm British. I know nothing about American fraternities aside from what I learned from films or TV shows and things like that I've watched. So yeah, I don't know anything about these kinds of things, but I do find it really entertaining. But yeah, I think this film's fantastic. I think Ghostface is brutal. The scene where he kills by the way, big spoiler alert for Scream 2. The scene where he kills Randy is just really shocking, and it still manages to be shocking all these years later. Like, the fact that Randy's killed in such a brutal way, and it's going to tie into what I'm going to say with Scream 3, with who killed who, which is what I'm going to dive into first of all with Scream 1. So there are two killers. For those of you who don't know, the Scream franchise usually has two killers. And in this film, in Scream 1, I'm going to go back to Scream 1 briefly just to conclude this video. And the first two killers are Billy Loomis and Stu Mocker. And they both have different motivations. Billy Loomis said that he basically had a motive to basically kill Sydney's mother, Maureen Prescott, after basically she had a bit of a reputation and she decided to basically have an affair with Billy's father. And this basically caused a rift in the family, which led to the mother leaving and Billy being abandoned. So he decides to take revenge, and that ties into something that I'm going to talk about with Scream 3. But he basically decides to hatch a plan with Steve to basically go on a killing spree. And I like to play a game called Who Killed Who whenever I watch stuff like the Scream franchise with it, because it has a very huge emphasis on murder mystery and the fact that, anyone could be behind that mask and anyone could be wearing that mask during the time when they commit these murders. Anyone could be, killing any particular victim. Because there's usually two killers, it's always fun to see who killed who. So I'm going to say that the people who killed Sydney, it's not one of them. It's not either Stu or Billy. It's both. So Stu killed Casey Becker's boyfriend, the one who's tied to the chair and duct taped up. He actually killed her. He gutted her. He actually killed the boyfriend. He gutted him. And Billy killed Casey. And who killed the principal, though, I'm kind of half and half on. It could be Stu, because he's at school still, he's hanging around after hours. Or maybe it was kind of a simple case with the Casey Becker thing where it's both them, like Billy caused all the noises and Stu did the killing blow. But I like to think of it might be Billy, because, Billy's staying around after school and he's hiding, he knows all the places to hide, and he knows how to get into the janitor's office and thereby find the shortcut into, Principal Himbury's office. Or it could be Stu, because he could very easily, because I like to think he kind of, went out after the party, sent all the invitations, And he basically said, "Okay, let's have the invitations." And he quickly went back inside to kill Principal Himbury. Who knows? Like, there's so many ways in which I could look at that, but I personally think it's Billy who did that, or it could be Stu. But I think it's Billy because Stu is outside, sending all the invitations to the party, and he probably arranged it with Stu very early on that, oh, you do the phone call later on, and I'll do the killing right off the bat. Like, they probably arranged it together. And who killed Tatum Riley, Sydney's best friend? In the garage scene where she's getting the beer, and there's that classic exchange of "Please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel." I think it was Billy because Billy has this look on his face when he shows up at the party towards the very end when people are starting to leave, and Stu and Sydney are by the door. He just pops up in that jump scare fake out. He gives Stu a little bit of a look with raised eyebrows, like he has this look like, well, Tatum's dead kind of thing. And I think, yeah, it's Billy. It's Billy who killed Tatum in that moment. And yeah, I think that's my ranking of who killed who in Scream 1. But let me know down in the comments who you thought killed who in the first Scream film. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And what did you think of Scream 2 overall? Because I think this film's really fantastic. I think it's got a great cast, it's got great dialogue, it's very suspenseful, and it really does a good job of rebuilding up the mystery and really kind of making you go, okay, where is this all going to go? And that's my thought. Let me know if you want me to do a spoiler video on both Scream 1 and Scream 2, because I'd like for you guys to watch it. For those of you who haven't seen the Scream films, I'd like for you to actually watch the films and then watch these videos. But I really would like to also go into detail about who I think the killers are and what I think the motives of various different killers are. But because I'm doing all the films, I'm going to go back and forth between all the different films every so often towards the end of the film. I'm probably going to be talking about the ending of Scream 2 or something like that, and go into details about who I think killed who and various other things like that. So I'm going to be going back and forth. But yeah, I really do think this film's fantastic. And I'm going to very quickly talk about the finale. It's now 20-ish minutes in, so I'm going to very quickly talk about the finale and the unmasking of Ghostface for the second time round. And I brought up the letters that Derek gave Sydney, and the reason why I think it's important to bring up is because during Sydney's car journey with the agents, Richard and Andrews, with her best friend Hallie, who ends up sadly getting murdered in that very, memorable car sequence. Derek, meanwhile, is being picked on and being harassed by his fraternity brothers, and he gets tied to a prop in the theatre department, and he basically, gets hoisted up there and left up there all duct taped up. And I thought, is this really what American fraternities do to their brothers if they don't follow the rules? Like, that seems a bit extreme. Like, he could very easily die up there from dehydration or something. Like, not to mention that's very, anti-health and safety. Like, my goodness, like, he could fall off of that. Like, yeah, there's so many dangerous and careless things that go on. But yeah, we find out through when Sydney finds him and she tries to untie him from this prop mast thing. We find out that Mickey is in fact the first Ghostface, and he begins to start taunting Derek and saying, oh, he could be my accomplice. Like, me and Derek have hatched this plan together, and it begins to create a bit of a rift between Sydney and Derek. And before he dies, he gets shot by Mickey, and he goes, he says before he dies, at his dying breath, I never would have hurt you. And I found myself going, oh, Derek, don't say it. Like, oh no. Yeah, Derek by far is my favourite love interest for Sydney, because he's just such a nice person and he's so sweet, and I really do love him. So when I found when he actually died, I was a little bit heartbroken, and when he said, I never would have hurt you, I thought, oh no, right, heart dagger to the chest, oh no. I hate that moment because it really rubs it in your face, like, oh yeah, I hate that scene. But yeah, Mickey is probably the one that I really wanted to punch in the face the most, because he literally said some things which I thought, you know, if that was me, I'd have punched him in the face right off the bat. I wouldn't even let him finish his monologuing. Like, I'd have just, you know, said, you want to kill me, you piece of shit, like, just kill me, because honestly, I'm tired of all the excuses, I'm tired of all the theatrics, like, just do something, that just kill them if you're going to kill them, kind of thing. And I really hate Mickey. I really hate him as a protagonist. The actor who plays him does a really wonderful job, but I really, really hate Mickey, because he literally says, I've got my whole defence planned out, I'm going to blame the movies. And I hate that line, because it really kind of says, you know, he's literally a twisted son of a bitch. He literally does not care who gets hurt. He doesn't care what it's going to say about films and entertainment in general. But that's what I really like about it, is that he clearly knows that he's being a manipulator, and he's going to bleed it for what it's worth. He's going to milk it for what it's worth. And he literally is someone that I was really looking forward to finally getting it, really getting his comeuppance. And it's revealed that he has an accomplice. And the accomplice is Debbie Salt, aka Mrs. Loomis. And it's actually really funny, because there's this really funny exchange that happens in the interim, where Gail goes, it's impossible, it can't be, like, I've seen pictures of you, I've seen photos of you. And she goes, oh, that's a lot of plastic surgery and a lot of work done later, but you get the gist. And she goes, Miss Loomis goes, yeah, it's called a makeover, Gail, you look as though you need one. But I love the fact that Sydney goes, yeah, that's because she's lost a lot of weight and had a lot of Botox and a lot of work done later, kind of thing. I love that, even though she knows that, you know, it's probably not going to help her situation to snap back at the killers. She's going to do it because she wants to just drag him for everything it's worth. And I absolutely love that scene. But honestly, this entire sequence where she's basically just saying that, oh yeah, my method isn't as 90s as Mickey's, it's just good old-fashioned revenge, you murdered my son, and things like that. She literally has this look, the actress who plays Mrs. Loomis really has this look in her eyes that she's just demented. She's a woman possessed. Like, she just does not care. She killed Randy. She was the one who killed Randy in the van, I think, because she even says, I got a little life happy with your friend, and things like that. So she literally says right off the bat that she's killed someone. And I think that's the only person she kills, because all the rest of the killings do feel very elaborate, very kind of showmanshipy. Whereas with Mrs. Loomis, she has a very straightforward motive. She just wants Sydney. She wants to get revenge on Sydney. And there's this little exchange that happens where Sydney actually does a lot of really great, you know, hiding. She even, you know, activates the props room, and she activates the, you know, technician's room, where she can play around with the props and actually, you know, F around with Miss Loomis. And I thought that was actually a really great moment, because it shows how much agency Sydney has as a character, and she really has a lot of, you know, when she has her opportunity, she takes it fully. And I think that's one of those things I really like about Sydney as a main character. She actually really has the initiative to survive. And it's only when Mrs. Loomis has her at knife point that she actually, you know, actually has a little bit of that agency slip away. And Cotton actually, Cotton Weary, who's in this film, he was actually accused of murdering Sydney's mother, Maureen, but it turns out that he was falsely convicted. He was falsely accused and falsely convicted. So he's a little bit angry with Sydney, and he actually wants to get a chance to tell his side of the story. But all he wants is one damn interview, and will Sydney give it to him? No. And he even rubs this into her when she's at knife point. Mrs. Slim is like, oh, that Diane Sawyer interview is looking pretty good right now, isn't it, Sydney? And Sydney knows what he's doing. Like, she knows that he's not gonna let us down. She's probably gonna die. He's probably gonna let her die if she doesn't say yes to this interview. So she just says, consider it done. And then Cotton Weary just shoots Mrs. Loomis in the throat. And I thought, oh my god, like, that's a brutal kill. Like, a headshot is probably the most effective, but honestly, getting shot in the throat is probably the worst way. One of the worst ways to probably shoot someone, because honestly, it's in the throat. That's where you breathe. That's where your voice is. Like, that's quite horrific. But yeah, she deserved it. She was a psychotic murderer. But yeah, I absolutely love this climax. It's very gripping. I like the fact that they utilised the two killers again. But I like the fact, again, that wonderful parallel with it being opening on a cinema screen and then ending on a theatre stage. I thought that was a very great way of kind of playing with the idea of reality, the idea of when does the fiction and when does the fiction start and the reality end, or vice versa. It's such a wonderful commentary on, the theme of, does real life violence affect entertainment. It's just so well done. And this film's fantastic. I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of the best sequels, I think. It's a wonderful commentary on sequels as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Scream 2, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and this has been Josh with WHIMS Scream Musings. I hope you're all having a very good day. Take care, bye-bye for now, and look forward to more videos very soon. Take care, bye-bye for now.